Okay, in this video, I'm going to talk about something which almost no one seems to understand or no one seems to actually focus on, which is when it comes to setting appointments for your agency, there is a lot of randomness at play. Things that are outside of your control, things that you cannot really make amends for and you can't really make adjustments to fix. This is something that I've battled with for a while. It's something that I've had to go into quite some scientific and mathematical understanding to actually understand what is happening here, and it's helped to save me an awful lot of time. It's helped to put me a lot more appointments. And if you implement this in your agency, then you're going to do exactly the same. So if you're not familiar with me, my name is Ben Lister. I help agency owners to save thousands and thousands of hours by helping them with their outreach, doing their outreach for them sometimes, and so they can actually work on their agency rather than inside of their agency. So the first thing that I want to talk about, which probably most people do understand, is that if you are running, a cold email system or cold calling system, whatever it is, there's an element of randomness to this, right? You are going to book appointments based on the skills that you have at this, right? Whether it's copywriting for email, whether it's your cold call abilities and your persuasion abilities when it comes to cold calling. But there's also going to be an element that comes to this, which is maybe the leads that you are picking up on, maybe the leads that you are calling, maybe they just aren't available right now, and there's nothing you can do about that because sometimes they're available and sometimes they aren't, right? Maybe they have a meeting or something like that, so the pickup rate is going to be lower. Okay, and this randomness is obviously going to affect your appointment booking rate because some days the pickup rate is going to be higher than others, but obviously on some extreme days the pickup rate is going to be far lower than it normally is. If your pickup rate is normally 50%, some days it might be as low as 25%, right? And if we go even further to that and we go into actually appointment booking rate, which is the sort of accumulation of all the different metrics that you have, this is something that can vary widely because there is so many different variables at place. Let's say, for example, if you are sending emails, the first thing we track, of course, is if the email is opened, if the email is seen. Then, of course, we track if the email has been responded to, if that response is positive, and then if that response is positive, if they actually booked an appointment, and of course if they booked an appointment, if they actually signed and become a client, right? So there's huge variables there, right? So if we go all the way from sending an email to signing a client, that can cause such a wide range in randomness, right? So obviously if, for example, the leads that you are messaging, more of them are having a bad day, the response rate might be worse, the positive response rate might be worse. And then, for example, if you are messaging people or emailing people on in the summer months, in July and in August, chance that they actually book an appointment is much less because most people are away or they're busy or they're not working on their business as much as they would be in February or March, for example. So there's huge randomness that's at play here, right? And there's all these different variables that can actually affect whether you do go to book appointments and sign clients. And so this is something that I see with my own campaigns that I do for my own business. It's something that I see for the campaigns that I run for my clients as well. Some days I open the inbox and there's 10 positive replies there, right? Sometimes I look at the Calendly and we have 4 calls in a day, 5 calls in a day for this client, right? And then the next day there will be zero, literally zero. There's nothing that we've changed. There's nothing that we've done wrong here. There's nothing that we could have even done to actually, fix this. It's just as likely that we were going to have 4 calls on Thursday and 0 on Friday as we would if we had 0 on Thursday and 4 on Friday, or 2 and 2, or whatever it may be, right? It's just as likely because this randomness that's at play, there's nothing you can actually do about it, right? The randomness of whether someone positively responds, obviously we can push things towards the direction by having better copywriting, by having better leads, by knowing what we're doing when it comes to actually personalizing emails and the things you can say and the things you can do, better call to actions, all that kind of stuff, right? But in terms of the same stuff that we are doing, the same exact system, this randomness is always there, and it's something that you have to work around and you have to understand it a bit more so that you can actually use it to your ability to actually generate the best appointments possible. So of course, patience is key with this, right? Don't get disheartened if the amount of appointments you're booking has now all of a sudden gone down for a couple of days. You need quite a lot of data in order to actually make a decision, whether that is a scientific decision, right? A decision that is actually going to be beneficial towards your system. The main thing here is to just focus on actually the data at hand, the science, rather than getting emotional about it. It's very easy to see you had no appointments in your first day of sending out emails, so now this email system doesn't work, right? You sent 500 emails yesterday, whatever it is, and you only had 1 positive response. You're not happy with that, which means that all of a sudden now this email system just doesn't work, right? But actually when we look at the science, when we look at the mathematics and the data inside of this, that doesn't mean almost anything because we haven't got enough data. And there's actually a tool that I've used quite a few times. This is like a little bit overkill, but it just sort of gives you an idea of how this actually works and exact numbers and the amount of outreaches you need to do to order have a certain level of confidence that your percentage of appointment booking rate is actually correct, right? Let's say, for example, if you are going to have 10,000 leads, right, and you sent out 10,000 emails, for example, and you have a 1% booking rate, right, so you're going to have 100 appointments out of that. Okay, that's obviously quite a large data set, right? So there's 10,000 and we've booked 100 appointments, so 1%. The chance that the actual appointment booking rate is significantly higher than that, so 1.5% or more, is quite low because we've used an awful lot of data there. Let's say there was 100,000 people in the niche, right? We've only messaged 10,000 of them, right? If we message 100,000, as a general rule of thumb, once we do that 100,000, 1.5% of those will positively respond, right? So that's going to be 15,000. So now we've taken a small segment, we've taken 10,000, right? It's obviously more significant than what a lot of people do, but if we take that small segment, right, and we focus on those, we should in theory get 1.5%, so we should get 150 from that 10,000, but actually we've only got 100, and there's nothing that you've done there. There's just the randomness of the situation. The next 10,000 people that you speak to, you might get a 2% ABR, so it evens itself out, right? So as a total sum, you get 1.5%. okay. And when you're working in much smaller numbers, when you're only emailing 1,000 people, 2,000 people, even a couple hundred people sometimes, this randomness is going to be more increased, right? Because if you imagine like all these 10,000 people in an open room, right, this huge room, and we draw a circle around it, or 1,000 people, and we say this is the group that we're going to look at, the chance that there's 1.5% there of people that are going to book an appointment is very, very low, right? We're probably going to have some kind of randomness there. It's going to be close to 1.5%, but it could vary quite widely. And I'm going to actually show you how you can actually calculate how this works and see how much data you need, how many people you need to reach out to in order for you are confident that this is the right appointment booking rate. Okay, so I'm going to actually dive into the computer and show you how this works. Okay, so what we have here is a confidence interval calculator, right? You can find this website by going to statskingdom.com/proportion confidence interval calculator. If you just Google it, it'll probably come in. But this is really cool, right? So the confidence level that we have, right, this is difficult to explain, right? Let's say, for example, if we have a confidence level 50%, okay, that means that this is going to be correct only 50% of the time. So it's going to give us a range of statistics. It's going to say between 1% or 2%, for example, and that is going to be right 50% of the time. So 50% of the time, it's going to be between those 2 points, okay? So ideally, we want to have a confidence interval of at least 0.8 probably. That's like a 1 in 5 chance of being wrong. You're more than likely going to be right, but we could go a little bit higher, right? So let's say we have a 90% confidence interval, okay? Then the sample size, the higher this is, the closer the numbers are going to be together, so we have more confidence. But let's say in the last month you've sent out 1,500 emails, okay? Random, we can give this a 2. And then the number of successes, right? So this is going to be the number of emails that we've sent, and let's say we have a 1% appointment booking rate, okay? So we have 15 people that have responded and booked an appointment, right? So put that in there, 15. Now we just calculate this, and it's going to give you quite a lot, right? They're going to be pretty similar, but this one here, the Wilson score interval is recommended, so we'll go with that. And so what this means here, right, is this confidence interval now is going to give us a wide range. So we've put in a 1%, okay? So the probability is 1%. Now this here is 0.66%, right? If there was a 1 there, it would be 10%, that would be 1%. This is going to be 0.66%, right? And the interval is from 0.66% all the way to 1.5%. So that's almost a 3 times difference there, right? And so what this is saying is that there's a 10% chance that our data is actually out of those intervals, right? So it's even further than 1.5%, or it's even lower than 0.66%. So it's a huge difference, right? And that's a 90% confidence interval. If we increase the confidence interval to 95%, what you're going to see here is it's gone all the way down now to 0.61% up to 1.6%, right? And so you might be thinking like, this is ridiculous, like this is way too mathematical, like what does this all actually mean, okay? And so what you can figure out is if you have, this 1% appointment booking rate right now, you can figure out like how reliable this actually is. And because we have like a 95% confidence interval here, this is pretty certain, it's pretty dead on, is that means that your statistics right now, your appointment booking rate is not 1%. It is right now, you have got a 1% appointment booking rate from the last 1,500 emails that you did, but it's more than likely going to be between this point, okay? So if, for example, you keep going on the way that you are and you do, another 5,000 emails, there's a likelihood that it could drop as low as, 0.6% or even down to, 0.8%, or it could rise as much to 1.6%. And so we want to make this number small. We want to make this range as small as possible, right? So we want to go, if we have a 1%, we want to really be between, 0.8 and maybe 1.2%. And the way that we do that is obviously by increasing our data size. So if instead of doing 1500, we do 15,000, okay, and we still have a 1% booking rate, so there's 150 bookings that we've had there, and we calculate that, and now what you can see is we have an appointment booking rate range of 0.85 to 1.2%. So that's much narrower now. You're actually much more confident there. So what you can say is, you know, if we do this again, the next 15,000, we know that we're going to book we're going to book at the lowest amount, so with a 95% confidence interval. So remember, there is a 1 in 20 chance, a 5% chance that this actually goes below this. So the next 15,000 emails that we're going to do, we're going to get between 127.5 appointments. So between 127 and 180 appointments in the next 15,000. Whereas this one, we got 150, right? And we have a 95% confidence that that's what's going to happen, right? And so what you can see is that if you're doing, you know, 50 emails a day, 30 emails a day, for example, if you're doing 50 emails a day, okay, 50 outreaches, or, you know, doesn't have to be emails, could be cold DMs, could be cold calls, whatever it is, right? And your conversion rate is you know, 1%, or let's say 2%, so you're getting, you know, 1 in 50. This range is so far now that, and so if you've only done 50 emails and you're basing your decision making on that, your whole system on that, right? This can drop to as low as 0.3% and go as high as 10.5%, which is insane difference. The difference between those two is ridiculous, and that's a 90% confidence interval, right? If we can lower the confidence interval down to 75%, it's going to narrow that down, right? But there's a 1 in 4% chance that that is wrong. So now because we have the 75% confidence interval level, there's a 1 in 4 chance that this is wrong, right? So we can say, you know, it's more likely the 75% chance that it's going to be between these numbers. But again, it's a huge difference, you know, 0.6% all the way up to 5.6%. That makes or breaks the system. Once you have this data and you know, okay, we're booking at 2% appointment booking rate, and I want to make sure it's between 1.5 to 2.5%, you need to come in here and you just need to open this up to as much as you can, right? Let's go for, you know, a 90% confidence again. And so let's try 500, right? Is this going to give me between the 1.5 and the 2.5 that I'm looking for? No, it's not. It can go as low as 0.4%. And then 2%, so it'll be 10 successes. So if we calculate that, this is still not going to give us between the 1.5 and the 2.5 we're looking for, because this is going between 1.2% and 3.3% now. And so, okay, let's try, you know, 1,000 emails, right? And so 1,000 emails, it could still be between 1.4 and 2.87%. So again, it's still too much. So let's try, you know, 2,000 emails. So 2,000 emails. Now we're looking at between 1.55 and 2.58. So that's basically what we want. So if you were happy, if that's the range that you wanted, you would have to base your decision on 2,000 outreaches in order to make an actual decision that is mathematically based. And even then, if you do that, right? So if you've done these 2,000 outreaches, you know, you have 2% appointment booking rate, and you're happy between a 1.5 and a 2.5%, there's still a 10% chance, right? A 1 in 10 chance that this range is wrong, okay? And so if you want to have a 1 in 20 chance, if you want to make sure it's absolutely, you know, crystal clear, if we do a 95% confidence interval, now we're back to a 1.47 to 2.7. So that's basically the same, but if you want to make sure it's the 1.5, you could do, you know, 2,500 here. So 2,500, then you're going to get back to roughly 1.5 to 2.6. So I hope that actually gives you a bit of understanding of like how sensitive your data can be sometimes and how random the appointment booking can be. I hope this makes sense. I hope I've explained it well, because I know it's a pretty, you know, quite a mathematical and quite a scientific topic. But if you're basing your decision making on the fact that you've just done 10 outreaches, 50 outreaches, 100, even 1,000 sometimes, that data is pretty fragile. And it doesn't mean that just because you've done a couple of days worth and you've, you know, reached out to a few people, that is the appointment booking rate that you're going to get for the rest of time, right? It doesn't even mean that it's going to be the appointment booking rate you get for the next 100 emails, because the amount that can vary is so high. And so basically, yeah, that's how that works. By the way, if you are struggling to sign the kind of clients that you want and book the amount of appointments that you want to, go ahead and click the first link in the description. Don't worry, it's just a video of me explaining how my company can actually do this for you. I'm not going to ask for your emails or your phone number or anything like that. Obviously, you don't have to click it. It's no big deal at all. But if you did enjoy this video, then please go ahead and click the like button. Comment any topics that you want me to cover, because we're going to be covering a range of topics here. And obviously subscribe if you want to see more. Appreciate you watching this one to the end. Cheers.